Greetings Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Review, the RTD2 era. It's not been the most spectacular era that we was kind of being promised. It's certainly not been an absolute disaster. I think that's been a little bit exaggerated, but it hasn't been the sort of dream way of bringing Doctor Who back to its glory days of the beginnings of the revived era that I think we were all kind of hoping for. It was kind of sold this dream of regular seasons and Christmas specials with no breaks and this global expansion of the Whoniverse and spin-offs. And we're here in 2025, and yes, we are going to get the upcoming spin-off. But the main show, Doctor Who, that status is kind of up in the air. We still don't know whether Disney are still committing to more Doctor Who after this spin-off has been shown or broadcast. And yeah, it's been a bit of a bumpy ride. And I'm not saying this is all RTD's fault either. I don't want this to be a video where we're just going to be slagging him off, because that's not going to solve anything. Yes, we can certainly be critical of some of the writing that he has produced for this new era of Doctor Who, but I feel that really there's certainly some parts of it where I feel that maybe he was sold this sort of false dream with this big partnership of the BBC and Disney, that maybe kind of just got a bit carried away. Don't know, because things can change very drastically and very quickly in the world of television. But I do feel he could have easily set out a better roadmap, knowing that he had at least 2 years with Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. And I also feel there's been a massive missed opportunity with the Whoniverse itself. So hit the subscribe button, that'll really help out this channel, as I talk about how I would initially set up this Whoniverse and what I would do as a little beat points for the 15th Doctor era. So let's go back to 2022 when it was announced that Russell T Davies was returning as Doctor Who showrunner. And yes, like everyone else, we were all excited. I was excited too. It definitely was unprecedented territory to have a returning showrunner coming back to have another go at Doctor Who. I kind of felt that he was there to steady the ship. It's quite obvious that Doctor Who's popularity has not been at its ultimate peak. I think that peak, personally, started to decline after the show's 50th anniversary. Everyone sort of says about how sort of David Tennant was like the big sort of mainstream poster person for Doctor Who, particularly, and yeah, I would say so, particularly in the UK. You know, he was definitely the mainstream guy. But I would definitely say that when Stephen Moffat and Matt Smith came in onto the scene for Doctor Who, for a global audience, I would say that's where it took it to the next level. And Matt Smith certainly took that to the next level with Doctor Who, the revised series of Doctor Who, really breaking out on BBC America at the time. And yeah, definitely fever pitch with the show's 50th anniversary, the Day of the Doctor, with the worldwide televisual broadcast and cinema releases. And I think after that, that's when we started to see a decline. I think Stephen Moffat was getting a bit too heavy with the whole Doctor Who lore and getting more and more convoluted. Then we had the Chris Chibnall era, which was kind of trying to do the same, but obviously trying to put his own stamp on things. And look, again, we can criticize them both. And I know, obviously, there was a lot of heavy criticism for the Chibnall era, but I'm not saying that all Doctor Who was bad. Absolutely not. There was some great gems in there. So for me, when RTD was announced to come back, I felt the goal was to steady the ship and start bringing back mainstream viewers. And obviously did so with David Tennant and Catherine Tate. And then for the show's 60th anniversary, we had the launch of the Whoniverse. And honestly, it's so good. It's so good. It's launched on BBC iPlayer on the 23rd of November 2023. And that is a place where all of Doctor Who is in one place. You've got the classic series, the revived series, the modern era, spin-offs with Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Class, K9 and Company, and new spin-offs such as Tales of the TARDIS and documentaries. Now, yes, I know a few stories from the classic era was removed because of rights issues, and I know we have the whole debacle with Fear Her. If you know, you know. But again, on the whole, the Whoniverse on BBC iPlayer is fantastic. And then when it was announced that Disney was partnering with the BBC to produce new episodes of Doctor Who and the global rights for broadcasting new Doctor Who episodes was just solely for Disney outside the UK, again, happy news, because we're getting that sort of global location for fan base to grow and brand sort of Doctor Who as this global phenomenon, this global force. The one glaring missed opportunity is they didn't have any of the back catalogue, which for me is absolutely just look, just thinking back is just insane. They should have had something, even if it was just the 2005 series onwards. At least they've got something to sort of solidify the new Doctor Who coming into Disney Plus. Now, again, I'm not an expert in the world of television and particularly international rights deals, but surely something could, with BBC owning this, surely they could have. Okay, yes, it was on HBO Max still at the time, but surely it could have been also on Disney Plus. Again, this is not RTD's fault, but really more, again, a missed opportunity from the BBC. They should have had something that helps grab global audiences either back into Doctor Who or introducing new audiences to Doctor Who. You've got obviously new stuff and a bit of a back catalogue just to sort of enjoy and get a more of a flavour of this wonderful sci-fi show. That would have been my first plan, is to make sure that not only the Whoniverse is available in the UK, but in some shape or form globally, particularly with the spin-off Tales of the TARDIS. Again, great episodes, and just recapping on classic stories and having those segments with classic doctors and companions, or even from companions from the spin-off series, such as Clyde Langer having a chat with Joe Grant for the Three Doctors Tale of the TARDIS. That should be available globally, and if it can't be on Disney Plus, it should be on the Doctor Who YouTube channel. Again, mind boggles that is just not available outside of the UK for fans to have a go and watch. And again, introducing new audiences to classic Who that goes, I might like to see some of that, some more. At least we've got it there, it's somewhere available for them to watch. Especially when RTD did a season 1 finale that was all about the return of Sutekh, which we haven't seen since Pyramid of Mars. And in between the season 1 penultimate episode, The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire Death, there was a special Tales of the TARDIS with 15th Doctor and Ruby reminiscing in the memory TARDIS about Pyramids of Mars. Great for UK viewers, but outside the UK, nope, you don't get to see that. So again, the sort of this global audience either not knowing who Sutekh is because there's just no sort of reference for them, or people just not really bothered, not seeing him as this great threat. Now, you can argue that RTD didn't have to do that when he revived Doctor Who back in 2005. But to be honest, what was the season 1 or the first series finale? It was the Daleks. Even mainstream viewers know who the Daleks are. Even if you're not a massive fan of Doctor Who, Daleks was just plastered everywhere. So they would have, there would have been a familiarity of the Daleks. But would casual viewers checked out Sutekh or Omega without any context or a chance to watch any of the classic stories or even see something on Tales of the TARDIS? Probably not. So that will be my phase 1, making sure that the Whoniverse is relatively accessible on a global scale, whether it's on Disney Plus with some back catalogue or on the Doctor Who YouTube channel. My second phase of this battle plan would be to do with RTD and the 15th Doctor himself. So RTD knew that he had at least 2 years with Ncuti Gatwa with the 15th Doctor. And I understand him sort of building up sort of storylines for potential season 3 and season 4, but he didn't know fully where it was going, and I think we saw the punishment of that when we had the rewrites for the season 2 finale, which I went into a lot more detail in from my recent review of The Reality War. Do check that out on the Timeline View YouTube channel. So yeah, I feel like as much as RTD did try to keep the plate spinning because of just what happened sort of behind the scenes in Doctor Who, and did do an okay job, could have been a lot better, and I think that's because he should have just stuck to a 2-year plan of what I can do with the 15th Doctor. And for me, it would be a journey of what we kind of saw the 15th Doctor when he was first introduced with the giggle, but also a way of steadying the ship to bring back mainstream audiences to Doctor Who and cleverly and subtly advertise the Whoniverse and this big global scale of all the catalogue and all the shows that are available to watch in some form or another. Because let's be honest, we do like a bit of member berries from time to time. We do like to have a little bit of a nostalgia look or a nostalgic look to classic shows and like to revisit them once in a while. Now, I'm not saying that this should be the only formula that RTD should be sticking to, because we've kind of seen what's happened in the last 2 seasons and it hasn't overly worked. But in sort of the way that I feel that how he should have presented it in the first place back in 2023 as a way of steadying the ship and advertising a global phenomenon that is the Whoniverse, we can take some liberties with this. So when we first introduced to the 15th Doctor in the giggle, he was kind of like this healed Doctor, whereas the 14th Doctor was kind of preceded as this 1,000+ year old Time Lord that has seen so much trauma, dealt with so much emotional baggage that he needed to retire and rest and let and kind of like had his cake and eat it in a way with this bi-generation, where this new 15th Doctor can go off without this baggage, without this emotional torment, and go and see the universe. But then when we started going into seasons 1 and 2 with 15th Doctor, we kind of went back to how this character was in the 3 specials, where he was dealing with a lot of emotional trauma and trying to sort of deal with everything. Or maybe was just doing this as a show for the 14th Doctor to rest and go, don't worry about me, I am fine. But really, no, he's still processing that emotional trauma. And the way to do that is to kind of face his fears sort of accidentally with previous villains that has caused this emotional damage. First one being Sutek. Who is Sutek? Well, you've kind of got this story building up in season 1, but at the same time, you can drop in little hints of, oh, if you want to know more about Sutek, here it is on the Whoniverse on BBC iPlayer. They did well, to be fair, with the Tales of the TARDIS, but again, with that not being readily available globally, it kind of made sort of global audiences and international audiences confused. So make sure that is at the very least available so they know who this is, and then sort of drop in little sort of hints along the way, like the 15th Doctor did when he was talking about Susan. Again, we got a bit of an information of who Susan is from the 15th Doctor, but it'd be great if we saw any stories involving the Doctor's granddaughter and the first Doctor. It was there. It can be easily done. You don't need the beginning episode, with obviously they're still having rights issues with Steph Colburn. But again, you've got the Daleks, you've got the second story. Just plonk it straight in there. And again, we did have that with the Daleks in colour. You know, RTD has done a good job in terms of showmanship with having these editorial versions of classic stories. But again, I think from outside the UK, it's not available. That should be on Disney Plus, or at the very least, the Doctor Who YouTube channel. Then at the end of this 2-year journey, we've kind of got an idea of the sort of contracts that are going available. I feel like if RTD and BBC and Disney sort of presented it in this kind of fashion, rambling fashion, I might add from me, so I do apologise. I just feel that one, it would have been a lot more acceptable for fans like myself, because we're there to sort of steady the ship, and it's just like a 2-year thing. It's not going to be a permanent thing for Doctor Who. I don't want it to sort of like basically eat itself to death. I think after series 2 of 2 years of steadying the ship is plenty of time to reintroduce new audiences back to Doctor Who, or returning audiences back to Doctor Who. And in terms of the 15th Doctor kind of healing himself, I'm sure RTD can work his magic into doing that. Maybe the Rani will be the main antagonist. And once he's kind of liberated himself in this sort of shedding off this trauma weight, again, we can either use that as the 15th Doctor had to sacrifice himself in order to heal himself, or he does heal himself, and we do get Ncuti Gatwa and the Disney are all happy for season 3 of Doctor Who, and we can springboard into adding new ideas and not really having to rely on classic monsters or villains from the past. We can start siphoning that off and then just growing it into new audience, into new exciting aliens and monsters. We need a new big villain. I don't think we've had a big sort of mega popular villain probably since the Weeping Angels, and I'm sure again RTD or new writers are capable of doing these exciting new aliens. We had the Toclafane, which was originally going to be the sort of main villains for the Doctors if we didn't have the Daleks. So RTD is capable of doing that, but just at the moment obviously he wants to rely on classic villains and monsters, which is fine to a certain extent. And like I said, in this sort of presentation where we're trying to grow the Whoniverse, that's fine, but it should not be a forever thing. This is how I would present this brand new era, starting with the 15th Doctor. Again, a way of just steadying the ship, getting a new audience, getting returning audiences back interested into Doctor Who, and obviously starting off with a lot of member berries, but just starting, but then just siphoning it off. So if you wanted to go back and just kind of revisit the glory days in a way, you've got this big platform already advertising the Whoniverse, and then ready for season 3, whether it is with Ncuti Gatwa or a new incumbent Doctor. We can then just go on to something brand new. New ideas from RTD, new ideas from new writers, please. And maybe just RTD just sort of supervising it all would be sort of my ideal sort of situation. I hope what I said in this video makes sense. Let me know in the comments below if you like my idea, if you hated my idea, or what ideas you would have had to introduce this brand new era of Doctor Who. Especially if you are the showrunner of Doctor Who, what would you do with Disney Plus and this 15th Doctor incumbent? Would you have brought back classic monsters and villains, or would you have utilised them more differently, or more, maybe say, better than what RTD has done? Let me know in the comments. But thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. Hit the cloister bell for more notifications. Come say hello and follow me on Facebook and X. And do check out my other fantastic Doctor Who related content on Timey Wimey Review TikTok. And of course right here on the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel. Thank you as always for your love and support. Until we meet again.